I've said this before, this is clearly one of the year's hottest car launches. And why? Well, of course, because it has all the makings of being a true blockbuster. Now, the Kia Sonet, there was a huge amount of buzz that got created when the car was first unveiled, and of course you've seen all of our first look videos. But then came all the curiosity around this car. The launch is now just a few days away. So we got in touch with the guys at Kia and said, hey, you know what? We're getting so many questions and queries from you. It's time to get close to the car once again and answer those questions. So unlike then, when there was a whole lot of people coming in here, today it's just you, me, and the Sonet. So I can take that off and get straight to all your questions. Thank you for sending in so many of them. I've got some of them right here. Let's get started. Tiger nose grille, heartbeat DRLs, and all of that chunky muscle. Yes, the Sonet is good looking, and I've certainly gone on and on about that the last few days. And you know what? Many of you have reacted to all of the design and styling elements on this car. That's no surprise. And so also not a surprise then is the first question from Astha. What according to you is the most remarkable feature of the Sonet? Predictably, my answer, the design. Yes, you know, in this very crowded segment today with so many cars vying for your attention, being just bloody good looking, that's very important. And so the good thing about the design is not just that it's attractive or that it has these modern elements. It's also the fact that in terms of proportions, the car looks a little different. It's more squarish and tall rather than being a little rectangular like some of the other cars are. And I think that, to me, becomes a very distinctive thing about the Sonet. Little hint of red there to tell you that this is the GT line. Yes, there will be the tech line, and that means that this car also gets the dark interior. I'll show you that in a second. But the tech line, remember, has the lighter interior palette. Now, the reason I'm popping the hood is because the first question is about engines. So there you go. Now that badging right there tells you straight away that this is the 1-liter turbo GDI engine. And so the question is from Joel, curious about the different engine specifications and also the seating. So Joel, I'll get to the seating in just a second. On to the engines. Yes, this is the 1-liter, like I said. You have the option of the 7-speed DCT gearbox, that's the dual clutch automatic, but the excitement is the new IMT. You also have the 6-speed IMT, or intelligent manual transmission, which means clutchless driving and yet having the control of a manual. On the 1.2 petrol, you will get a 5-speed manual transmission, and so that's your basic one. And then you also have the 1.5, that's the diesel CRDI or common rail. And here is another nice little USP. Not only do you get the 6-speed manual, you also have the 6-speed torque converter. That's a segment first, and something I'm dying to drive. So of course there'll be a whole lot of variations in terms of trims, etc. as well. We'll know all those details when the car actually launches. But there's a related question from Pratik, and it's a good one. What is the state of tune on the diesel automatic Sonet? I have read that the same figures as the Seltos should apply, and the manual will be slightly lower tuned at 100 PS output. So yes, you get the little bit of extra torque, and the torque converter will channel that through. So very much like the Seltos, 115 PS according to the company. We prefer BHP, that's 113. And yes, on the manual, it's 100 PS or 99 BHP. So Pratik, you got it, bang on. The next question from Chinmay is a very obvious one that many of you would certainly have been thinking about. What is the mileage on the Sonet? Well, of course, when you compare to the competition, it has to be really credible. I say this, sounds vague, because we still don't have the official ARAI mileage figures from Kia, and that's because they are yet to receive the confirmation of those numbers, is what we are told. And so, what am I expecting? Well, think about it. Look at the competition set. And that means on the petrol DCT, that gearbox side of things, you should have something in excess of about 18 kilometers per liter at least. On the diesel side, I'm expecting something, well, at least higher than 23 kilometers or thereabouts to the liter, because that puts it then in the as good as or better than competition. Next up, it's Sachin. The question is, so will it compete with the Honda WRV and the Honda Jazz? Oh, Sachin, not quite. The WRV, yes, to a certain extent, because it does kind of play in that cross-hatch subcompact SUV space in terms of footprint and also in terms of what Honda likes to say that vehicle represents. But the real competition will come from the Hyundai Venue, the Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza, the Mahindra XUV 300, the Tata Nexon, and yes, the Ford EcoSport. Now, Soumya has something to say which many of you have expressed either as a question or as a comment. And the question asked is, what is the difference between the Sonet and the Venue? Yes, they are cousins. Yes, there is a lot that's similar because they do share a platform and they do share their drivetrain options. Everything you get here under the hood, you also get on the Venue. But that's where the differences really start to kick off, because everything else about the cars, chalk and cheese. I say that with confidence because we've seen that with the Creta and the Seltos, and globally you see that in all Kia and Hyundai cars. And so it's not just superficial. The design definitely very different. You've seen that already. That's true inside and out. But it's also the way the cars drive, the way they perform, the overall essence of being a Kia. Remember, they like to have the power to surprise. That's something that you can expect on the Sonet. I haven't driven it yet, but I have that expectation as well, because like I said, we've seen that in all other cars too. And you know what? Why should the Sonet be any different? I expect Kia to meet all of its internal benchmarks with this car as well. The next question from Anand is a nice and detailed one. Talks about telescopic steering, that adjustment is missing, so is that important? The back row space enough for a fat or a tall person, and of course the rival models that we've just talked about already, Anand. And he also wants me to drive it early and give you a review. I would like nothing better, so I hope the guys at Kia are listening. But you know what? There's a whole bunch of questions, and it just kind of makes sense to go inside the car for these. But let me quickly tell you, Shevaz is asking about the front seating for a 6-foot plus individual. Does it have sufficient space also in the back seat? That's also what Vaibhav and Arnav have asked. How's the back seat compared to the rivals? Is it easy to get in and get out of? Akash wants to know if the Sonet can be a 5 or a 6-seater. And you know what, there's even one more about the interior. Yes, Ravi and Praveen have both asked if the Sonet has a sunroof. So let's go in. I'll give you all these answers. Okay, so inside, lots of headroom, and you have an adjustable seat, of course, for the driver. So you can go front or back as always, and it's also height adjustable. So really, I don't think it should be an issue. No matter how tall you are, you should be able to find yourself a fairly good driving position, and it's a nice commanding view of the road that you get or will get once I'm out on the road. The bit about the steering adjustment, I pointed this out during my first look as well. Yes, it goes up and down, but it does not go in and out. And for me, that can be a little bit of a niggle. Most people don't really care, because I found that a lot of people don't adjust it telescopically. So if you're someone who needs that, you are going to find it to be a bit of a problem. But for the most part, luckily, the position of the wheel is very comfortable, and you get the appropriate driving position in terms of where your arms should be. So again, I don't think that should be a huge problem, but yes, I would have preferred if it was telescopic. The talk about sufficient space in the back, well, of course, for that I'm going to have to get into the back, but I want to quickly just address the sunroof question. Ta-da! Yes, the top end gets a sunroof. So Ravi, Praveen, you got the news on the sunroof, and you know what the good part is, that of the 6 variants that we're expecting, the sunroof should be available on the top 3. So it's not just right at the top. I'm sure a lot of buyers will like that. Inexplicably, the sunroof, it's something everybody seems to want in India. All right, now before I head to the back, I want to quickly take this one question from Nambi as well. Is Uvo, that's the Uvo Connect system, free only for the first 3 years, and is that the same as the Seltos? So for those of you who don't know, which I'd be surprised by, Uvo Connect, remember, is the onboard assistant, the virtual assistant that also allows you through the SIM card to connect your car to the telematics on your Uvo app on your phone, and it has a whole host of features like, hi Kia.
How can I help you?
What's the outside temperature?
It is 34 degrees in Dundera.
All right, so it's stuff like that you can use it for. And to your question, is it free only for the first 3 years? Yes, the data services would be provided free of cost for the first 3 years, as it is on the other Kia models. time for that all-important back seat check. Now, many of you had questions about whether there's enough room back here in terms of legroom and in terms of headroom. As I have said before, this is fairly ample given the footprint of the car. Remember, this is a segment that sits below 4 meters, and so yeah, I think this kind of works. The other good part is that it's pretty good on features too. So you've got the rear AC vents, you've got the rear USB charger. The top variant, which is the HTX Plus or the GTX Plus, also gets you the air purifier with virus protection, and this has the all black interior. That theme continues. Drop down armrest, though of course, to answer the question that had come in about whether this can be a 5 or a 6 seater. Well, I'll tell you what, it can't be a 6 seater, that's for sure, but officially it does sell as a 5 seater. So Akash, when you ask that, the only thing is that the middle passenger sitting here means that this of course has to go up, and it's going to be a little bit of a tight squeeze maybe for 3 very large adults, but for a family car it certainly works. That's pretty much in line with this segment. The seat itself is nice and tall, so the question about getting in and getting out easily, you saw me, I got in really easily. And you know what, I am going to get out and show you how that is. Why? Because for those of you who think my 5 feet 11 inches is not a good enough measure to tell you about whether this is ample for tall people, I'm going to request my colleague to come in. So let me put that on and call Akhil, who is 6'2", and then you can see if he's comfortable or not. Here I go. Akhil. It's a great question from Sonu. How is the after sales service from Kia? Are the parts easily available now that there is local manufacturing in Anandpur? Great question, a nice detailed one, and also a very relevant question for so many potential buyers. The answer, quite simple. It is something that has been work in progress right from this time that the Kia brand first arrived in India last year, and it's already gotten to 265 touch points across 160 cities. And so that network's going to grow to 300 touch points by the end of the year. So availability from the geography perspective, that gets pretty well sorted out, and being locally manufactured with a high level of local content, these cars are also competitive in terms of the pricing on those spare parts, and in many cases are actually leading the segment in terms of being very affordable. And on to another very relevant question from Preeti. How many color options on the Kia Sonet? 8 colors, just like Big Brother Seltos, except instead of the orange there, you get this, the beige gold. That's the new color for the Sonet. And again, unlike that car, here you have only 3 dual tone options that I'm expecting, on the gold, on the red, and also on one of the whites. Asim asks, what about the dimensions? Yes, that's something we didn't get into the last time, and now I do have some numbers from my sources which I can share with you. Remember, this is a subcompact car. In India, that means it also has to sit below 4 meters, and so it sits just below 4 at 3,995 millimeters in length. The good news, an ample amount of that, as you've seen inside that roomy cabin, comes from the 2,500 millimeter wheelbase. The overall height of the car is 1,647 millimeters to be exact, and the width 1790. So that's a lot of information then on the new Kia Sonet that we've covered, and I'll tell you what, I can't wait to drive the car. So that's the one relevant bit that remains. One last question then before we end today's session. This one comes from Bharat. Why is the car relevant in today's world? Great question. And you know what? It becomes even more relevant in today's world because not only is the market still obsessed with SUVs, but the world is going a little more compact. People are moving away from shared mobility. They want personal mobility given the COVID times we live in. And then they also want to be judicious with their money, which means they're going to be careful how they spend it. A car that falls into this sort of a footprint, and therefore subcompact SUVs, yes, become very hot in the foreseeable future. So maybe in that sense, the Kia Sonet arrives at just the right time. So That's about it from me then. Thank you for all your questions. And remember what I said, can't wait to drive the car. You, of course, have to catch the full review when we do. Bye-bye.